In this video, I'm going to show you my exact process for creating fully working and functioning prototype websites that you can demonstrate to a client, get their feedback on, and then ultimately build it for them. The best thing about this is we're going to use a range of tools to help speed up the entire process. Then all you need to do is change over the content and you have that fully finished website for a client. Let me show you the process after we've taken a look at the end result we're going to work towards in this video. So for this example, we are working with a fictitious landscape gardening company, and they wanted to have a modern, fresh, clean website that conveys the kind of work they do and also demonstrates the people that are involved in the project. Obviously, I didn't have any images for this, but I had an idea of what I wanted to do. So this is what I've ended up with. As you can see, we've got an amazing sort of hero section, which really does emphasize the kind of image that they are going to create for those clients, really sells the whole process. We've got some animated effects coming in. We've got a happy customer, some information about the services they offer. It's all generated content just so it fills things out, but it allows the client to see what they're going to get and can give feedback on a fully functioning website. Then we've got some more information about what we do, the garden design, lawn care, planting. You kind of get the idea. Then we've got a testimonial to reinforce exactly what we do and happy customers, those kinds of things. Then we've got some information about the actual people behind the project, their expertise, those kinds of things. And finally, we wrap it up with a call to action saying to either get in touch for a quote or to download a brochure. So all of this was put together probably in the space of about 30 to 45 minutes. I've added a little bit of flair like the animations and things afterwards, but these are not needed to get up and running. So let me show you the tools we're going to use and the process we're going to go through to realize this final end result. For this first part, we're going to use one of my favorite tools right now, which is Relume. This allows us to easily create a sitemap, then wireframe, customize the various different aspects included in that wireframe. Then we get a style guide to envisage what we want, and then we can move on from there and use it in various different ways. Whether we want to generate the HTML code, we want to output this to Webflow, we want to dump it into Figma, all those options are available inside the tool itself. So logging into my dashboard, the first thing we're going to do is create a new project. Now I've already covered Relume in a lot more detail, so I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. So you can skip ahead if you've already seen this and you understand the process. Timestamps in the description down below. And if you want more info, I'll also link to that video down below for you as well. So let's create our new project. First thing it's going to ask us to do is give it a prompt. What is this website about? It's going to use this as the kind of starting point. So I've already got one. So it's a high-class landscape gardening company, etc., etc., etc. We'll limit it to 1 to 5 pages, and we're going to set this to be English UK, and we're going to say generate sitemap. This is then in real time going to generate a sitemap of what it considers to be the typical kind of site for that particular prompt that we've given it, our homepage and so on, and we'll have the various different sections that we can call upon and take a look at. So after a few moments, we end up with our sitemap, and as you can see, it breaks things down into quite a lot of detail. Now, we're only going to focus on the home page here, but the process for all the other pages is basically fundamentally exactly the same. So let's take a quick look. First of all, we've got our navbar, which in this example is what's called a global section. So our navbar and our footer are global, so they're the same on every single page. So we make a change to one instance, all the others will change accordingly. You can select this, you can change the name of it, you can add a description if you want to, or you can easily make changes to various different aspects of this. Next up, we've got our hero header section, our feature list section, another feature section, benefits, team, testimonials, gallery, call to action. So these are individual sections that it considers to be important on this particular page. You can easily move these around if you want to, or position it somewhere else, you can do. If you want to change it, you can do. If you want to add a new section, you can click add a new section from all the different options that are available. Like for example, the benefits. You now have a new benefits section, which you can easily change the name of, change the description of, reposition that as you see fit. And if you don't want to use it, delete it. Simple as that. So let's go with what we've got here to start off with. This is a decent enough starting point. If we want to change things, we can do. Now let's hop into the wireframe. This is where the magic really starts to happen. This is going to take our structure from our sitemap and start to build out a wireframe of what it considers the pages could or should look like. Again, we have full control over the content, the structure, the layout, the text, all those kinds of good things. We can change all these different aspects and customize this to get exactly what we want. So you can see it's going through creating all those various different wireframes. Imagine if you had to do this yourself. You would probably spend hours doing this in a tool like Figma. This allows you to hit the ground running, and then you can make some more decisions, speed up everything from there. So let's go and take a look at our homepage. This is what we've got. Let's zoom right in. So now you can see we've got all those same sections. There's our navigation block, our hero section, all those kinds of things. So let's say we don't want the look of this one. We want to change this particular hero section. We can click on it, and now we can customize this in various different ways. We can change the template, which we'll take a look at in a moment. We can change the style from normal to a card design. We can change it from a video to an image or an image to a video. It's up to us what we want to do. And we can change the placement of this, whether it's left or right, and whether you want to have a form on here to have someone sign up, or whether you want to use a button. You can also regenerate the copy inside here. You can see this is just AI generated copy, which again, you can fully change should you want to. And if you want to regenerate it, hit that and prompt it to the way you want, regenerate the copy, and then it generate more copy for you, so you can pick and choose what you want from there. We can also easily change the design here. Let's choose replace component, and this will then show us a bunch of different components or templates that we can then pick and choose from, and we can choose what we want from this overall list of options. So I quite like the look of this one, so I'm going to select that from the list. And let's just say we want to get rid of a button, for example. We only one button. Well, you can click on that button, hit delete, and it's gone. Simple as that. Want to change the text? You can manually change it or use AI to change it. So you can easily click inside here and say rewrite, get to rewrite what you want. I'm not really too bothered with this, so we'll just discard that. Okay, so we can go through all the different sections and customize the look and feel of these. So for example, I don't want this section, so I can easily select it from here, delete it, gone. Come down to the next one and say, I like the look of this, for example, but maybe you want to flip this to the opposite side, so we kind of get a nice sort of structure as it moves down the page. Our team, I'm not really bothered too much about that in this example, but let's just say I can change this over to different types, and we can say whether you want a slider or just want to have a normal sort of setup, how many columns you want to use, and you can see we've got type 1 and type 2. So we can customize this again, and we can easily come in and we can make changes to this. So if you don't want to have 2 rows, you could easily just come in and delete the extra ones. But for this example, let's say I don't want this completely gone, so let's just delete it. Cool. Project showcase. Let's say we're happy with the look of this. Then we can move over to our style guide. Now, our style guide is where we start to take this wireframe and make it more realistic, more realized. So let's open up the style guide, and this will then show us a preview on the right-hand side, and it gives us all the information from color palettes, typography, those types of things on the left-hand side. So I'm not going to spend too much time here because I've already done a big chunk of this. We're going to take my example and I'm going to show you how I'd recreate it, but I want to quickly show you how this works. Let's say we want to have a dark version. We've got a dark version. Let's say we don't want these additional colors. Let's dump those off, and let's just add in our own color. So we'll change this over. I want to have a green, because obviously it's a gardening company. I want to have more of a yellowy green. Something like this looks pretty good. There we go. We'll say that's a color we're happy with. We'll lock that in place. Come to our heading, for example. We can click on here. We want to have a serif font for our headings. Take a look through and say, what ones do I quite like the look of? Let's say I quite like the look of this one. We can thumbs up this. Get recommendations, and get recommendations based upon what we've chosen here. Generally, this is going to pull up Google fonts, so you can say only free fonts and only see Google fonts. You kind of get the idea. Now, let's just say you know exactly what fonts you want, which I do in this example. So I'm going to search for the font that I want. This is what I'm going to use for my headings. That adds that in. Our body, again, I know what I want from here. This is going to be Barlow. So again, I'm going to search for Barlow. Choose that option, and then we can lock those so we can't accidentally make a mistake. And if you want to change the kind of weight of these, you can do that. The size, the weight of them, you kind of get the idea. Depends if the font supports it. In this example, this sort of Gluck font doesn't. But let's just say we want to go for regular. Our buttons, let's open this up. Let's see, you want to have rounded corners on those, and I quite like the look of these default buttons, but if you want, you can choose from any of these sort of variations you've got here. We'll choose this one. You can see that immediately updates and shows on the page what it's going to look like. And then for the cards, we're going to come in here and we'll do the same kind of thing. Going to make sure that we get the rounded corners on these, and we'll choose this option. And then anywhere that the cards are being used in the design, we'll have that same kind of effect. So you can see the image has the rounded corners, and anywhere else that's using it. Want to change the colors on here? Not a problem. We can click to change colors, or we can easily just hold down the command key and change colors from there as well. And you see everything updates accordingly. So you get the idea how this is going to work. So once we're happy with this, we could now, if we wanted to, export this over to Figma. But in our example, I don't want to deal with any of that. I simply want to use this as my starting point, and I'm going to use that to actually create the design. Now, I've already gone and done the work on this previously, and as you can see, this is the design that we ended up with. And this is basically what you're going to see me recreate. Now you'll notice we've got the images inside here. So how did I go and create those? Well, these are all AI generated images. You probably can tell, but I think they look pretty damn good, and they are more than enough to kind of use for prototyping if you don't have real world images from a client. So let's see how we can create something like this for ourselves. Now, if you enjoy this kind of content and you get value from it, why not hit that thumbs up button to tell YouTube that you like it? If not though, you can hit the thumbs down button twice, as that seems to work pretty well too. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button to be notified when new content is added. Anyway, let's get back on with the video. Now, for my example, I'm using Sora, which is still part of ChatGPT. So if you've got a ChatGPT account, you can do a lot of the same things inside there. So you can test this out for yourself and get similar results. So let's open this one up, which is our kind of hero image. And there's our prompt. So let's just copy this prompt and start again. So we'll start with a completely fresh render. So we'll come back out of this, come back up to the top. So we've got nothing on screen. Pardon the little bass player pun there. And we're going to say we want to use this in a 3:2 aspect ratio. It's an image, and we're going to pop that in there, and we're going to hit the enter, and we're going to let that go and generate that first image for us. It'll take a few moments depending on how busy things are, but once that's done, we can then take that image and we can start to use it or modify it and remix it should we need to. Now, while we're waiting for that to actually complete, let's move on to setting up my Blueprint site. Now, a Blueprint site is basically all the tools you want to use inside, in this example, WordPress, so my page builder like Brixies, any theme settings, advanced theme, my framework, all those kinds of things are already set up and configured the way that I want to use them. So now all I need to do is spin up a copy of my blueprint, and I've already saved myself a big chunk of time. So let's go over to my blueprints. I've got this blueprint Brixies. I'm going to simply come over to my 3 dots, and we're going to say we want to clone this. We'll set it as a temporary site, but you can reserve this so it doesn't expire, and hit clone. That's going to take a few moments depending upon how complex the site is to get everything set up. And we're going to then need to quickly go in and just add in my serials. So each of those additional plugins is activated and fully ready to go. Now, while we're waiting for that to spin up, let's move on to handling the fonts, the typography that we want to use on our site. Now, we've already got the Barlow installed. That's part of my typical setup, my blueprint, but we need to get that sort of title font that we want to use. So I'm going to use the Google Web Fonts Helper. This is a cool site. I've got a video on this and how to optimize your fonts, which you can check out, link in the description down below. What we're going to do is we're going to search for that font. There's our font. We're going to select it, and there's only the one sort of font size here, so it's not really too much of an issue. But what we can do is we can now download that. It'll download the WPTuts file, which is the most optimized version of this font. So we can download it. Job done. We can now add that to our Blueprint site once everything is set up. Okay, so let's come back into Sora and see what we've ended up with. And as you can see, we've got a slight variation on what I had before, but this is fundamentally the same kind of image. So doing exactly what I wanted to do. And let's just use this image for our design. So what we can do is we can simply save this, so we can download this from here, download it to our machine, and we've got our hero image set up. The process for the rest of this is exactly the same. So what I've done is I've created a folder inside Sora, and I've got all my images inside here. And as you can see, we've got a range of different images, some of which you've seen on the demo site that I've got set up, some that I haven't used, but I was testing things out. Let's quickly add this new one in. So all I need to do is click the 3 dots, add to folder, garden website, job done. And there's all our images in our garden website. So everything we need now has been created. We've got all the images we want. Our Blueprint site is all ready to go. I'm just going to quickly jump in, activate the different plugins, and we are good. Okay, so everything is now basically ready for us to start building things. So the first thing I want to do is set up my basic colors inside Core Framework. I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail here. I've covered Core Framework in a bunch of different videos. We're simply going to go through this relatively quickly so you can see my process. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this color. We'll grab that color reference. We'll pop over into Core Framework. I'm not going to deal with dark mode in this example, so we're going to disable that. Set our primary color. We'll paste that in. We'll get rid of our secondary color, and the same for our tertiary color. Don't need those right now. We can always come back in and add things in later should we want to. I've also got this background color that we want to use here. So we're going to grab that color reference. And again, we're going to disable anything to do with light and dark mode. We're simply going to keep these in standard. So background body, we're going to set to the color we've just copied. There we go. There's our background color. So we'll save those changes. We've got the basics in place. We can come back and we can tweak things as we go on. I spent a lot more time going through here and setting up all my colors and things. But again, like I say, I don't want to bore you with all that kind of stuff to see how it all works. So now we can start creating the page. So let's come into pages, all pages, and I've got a blank homepage set up, ready to go. So we'll edit this with Bricks. And now you can see there's our site basically ready to go. What we've done is if we come into the settings and our theme styles, I've effectively mapped the key colors to the relevant different parts of our overall design. You kind of get the idea how this is all going to work. So what we need to do is just change our background color a second. So we're going to come into general. I'm going to go to a site background. This is currently set to that background body. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that over and we're going to set that to be white. There we go. So now we're going to kind of get that checkered pattern as we need it. Let's expand this section, and this is going to be our hero section. So for this section, we'd generally go through and we'll create this from scratch. Then for some of the other sections, we're going to take advantage of Brixies. Now this is a wireframe library that I use on lots of different designs. It speeds up the process because a lot of the designs that you'll see inside here are very similar to what we've got inside Relume. So it means that what we see there is very quick and easy to transition over to our design and speed up the overall design process absolutely massively. So if you're not using a wireframe framework like Brixies, I would recommend taking a look at what options are available. Brixies would be my choice and recommendation because it just speeds up creating those typical sections, and then you can customize them as you need to as you go along. Okay, so let's create our hero section. First of all, let's give this a name. We'll change this from section to hero. Inside there's our container. We're going to come back and deal with the naming and give it classes and so on in a moment. Let's just put the basics in place. So let's take a quick look at what we have. We've got our main title, then we've got our subtitle, 2 buttons, and our image all set up inside here. So let's deal with that. Let's just start off by adding the relevant elements in. So we've got a heading, a second heading, then we're going to have to put a div in because we want to put those buttons side by side. So we'll add a div in. Inside that div, we're going to add in a couple of buttons. And then outside of that, we're going to add in an image, which is going to be our hero image. Okay, let's just position that where we need it. There we go. So there's our key elements. So let's select our first heading. Let's change this over to H1. Grab our second heading, set this to be H2. Our buttons, everything are all fine. So let's just set this to be main heading, secondary heading, our button container, and we'll have primary button and secondary button. And image is fine. Okay, so we now have the structure in place. What we need to do now is name everything because it's obviously good to have those naming conventions in place. We're going to use BEM naming and we're going to use the benefit of what we have using a tool like Advanced Thema. Again, another one of those tools that I use to speed up this whole process. But if you don't have that installed, no drama. All you need to do is just do what I'm going to do, but do it manually. That's it. So first of all, our hero. So we're going to right click on here and I'm going to choose the option for class converter. This allows me then to convert this into BEM naming. Because we named the first section hero, that's now going to pick that up and it's going to use the BEM naming convention for everything after that. So hero is going to be the block, then the element is going to be the heading, subheading, and so on. So we don't need the container. That's not really relevant. So we'll uncheck that and everything else is fine. Say yes, yes, and yes, even though we haven't created any classes or anything yet. So we'll say create classes, and that now we've got our class of hero, hero main heading, secondary heading, and so on. Container, no class because we're not going to do anything with it. Okay, so let's add in some relevant elements. Let's go and grab our main heading, pop the text in there, select our class, delete the placeholder information, drop in our heading, cool. Our secondary heading, same again, we'll simply select the class, delete the content, paste in what we want. We'll grab our primary button, select it. We'll set this style to be primary. There you go. That's picked up most of our styling. And now we can set the content we want in the button. This example, let's book a consultation. We'll choose our secondary button and do the same again. Select the class. This time we're going to set this to be styled primary. We're going to set this to be outline. There's our outline button. Change the text on there. And this is going to be download. There we go. So we've got the basic elements in. Let's go and add the image. Now, I'm not going to worry about optimizing these. You would obviously optimize them, save them as WebP format, just to make sure you optimize everything about your site. But for now, for speed, I just want to upload things. So we'll select our hero image, select the image itself. It's already in WebP format anyway, so that's not too much of an issue. And we'll go and upload the file. There's our image. Let's insert it. And there's our image in place. So apart from that, everything else looks absolutely terrible. So let's deal with that next. Let's come to our main heading, and from there, making sure the class is selected, we're going to come into our styles, we're going to come into our typography, we're going to set our color, we're going to set this to be light. So at least that's now picking up the right color. Same thing for the secondary heading. Again, typography, come in, set this to be light. So if in the future we do decide to have a dark mode, by using this light and dark, for example, when we flip them between light and dark mode, it will adjust accordingly should you want to use that. While we're at it though, let's go and grab our container and let's go into our content and let's come into the row gap. Let's choose an option from here. We'll specify we want to use something like extra small. That gives us some spacing between all the elements. We'll come into our button container. Again, select our class, set the display on here to be flex. That opens up the extra options, and now we can do is we can use our column gap. So again, let's set this up to be, for this example, let's try something like medium to give a nice bit of separation on there. That looks much better. And our image, let's come in, select it, come into style. We're going to come into, first of all, our layout. Going to give ourselves a bit of breathing space here. Actually, let's change that. Let's come to our container. Let's remove that row gap on there. Let's put on the hero. And we put large space in there. That gives us a bit more spacing. And our container then will control these little elements. So now we can just choose the row gap here. And we'll just choose something like extra small. That looks pretty good. Just to give us a bit of space in there. Okay, so you'll notice one of the key things is that our font isn't correct. That's because we haven't actually uploaded it yet. So let's save this where we are right now. Come back out of here. Let's open up our Bricks settings and come into custom fonts. And you can see Barlow has already been uploaded. So let's add our new one in. So let's add a new custom font in, give it a name. And what we're going to do is we're going to simply edit this. And we've got a WPTuts file. So we can choose to upload our files. I've got a fonts folder. So I'm going to select my file. There's my WPTuts file. We'll click on open, add that in and select. And there's our file all sorted. Publish this. So now if we come back into our pages, open up our home page again and edit this with Bricks. What we're going to do now is we're going to come up into our settings and our theme style, come into our typography and our headings. We're going to set this to use all the same font. So we're going to choose all our headings. We're going to choose the font that we want to use. Change it from Barlow. I'm going to choose Gluck from the list and boom, you can see that now picks it up for us. So cool, we've got that set up. Now what we need to do is customize the spacing and so on for these kinds of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our main heading. Size on this looks okay. We're going to come into our secondary heading. We're going to override that default value. So we're going to select the class, come into style. From there, we're going to open up our typography. And this time we're going to change this over. We want this to actually be Barlow. And we're also going to set the size here, set this to be large. There we go. So now we're kind of getting somewhere. We've got everything set up. We just need to adjust the actual size of this now. And for that, we're going to come to our main heading. We're going to come in, select our class, into our layout, and we're going to set a max width on here. So we're going to use rem values because it gives us flexibility. We'll set it to be 60 rem. That looks pretty good. While we're at it, I think the font needs to come down just a little bit. So let's just come into our typography. And for our font size, we're going to choose this to be, that looks pretty good. I like the look of that. And now we need to do the same thing for our secondary heading. Let's select that from our list, come into our layout, our max width, set our rem value on there, job done. We've now got that set up. So now we can move on to our image. We'll select our image from our list, select the class, come down into our borders. And from here, we'll have our border up, link these together if they're not already linked. And we're going to set this to have a medium radius. So now we've got our hero section all set up and created. Hit save on there. And obviously you want to make tweaks to this, like the color isn't particularly great for the buttons, so we'd want to change that inside the sort of the theme style and so on. A little bit of remedial work to do here, but like I say, you can probably do this yourself without any real problem. I want to show you how we can just quickly handle a lot of what we do. Okay, so there's the hero section. Now we're going to add another section in. So let's go back to our design. And our design, we need to have this sort of 50-50 split with an image on the right and some text and so on the left-hand side. So let's go and use Brixies to do this. Now come here, we're going to search in our feature sections and find a layout that looks pretty similar to what we need. And there we go, feature section 10 looks pretty good, pretty spot on. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply rename this. We'll call it feature. rename and copy it. So now let's just paste that into our design. There we go. You can see that's our design, probably 80% of the way there. Let's expand this and get rid of any of the things that we don't want. So we don't want this tagline, for example, so we'll delete that from our list. We don't want the buttons, so we're going to get rid of that as well. And then we'll just handle anything else on here as we go through. So let's select our text, choose our heading, come into our styles, make sure nothing is set inside there. We're looking good. We'll set this to be H2 because it's a subheading. We'll paste in our content. What we're going to do is we're going to make this a bit smaller. So from a semantic point of view, it's using H2, but from a style point of view, it'll be smaller because obviously this is a bit too big. So again, like I say, come into our styles and typography, come into our font style, sizes, set this to be, let's go for XL for now. We'll see what that looks like. And also you can change the text underneath and those kinds of good things. We'll go and upload our image. Let's delete this placeholder, select our image, upload. While we're at it, we'll upload the additional files. Let's insert that. There's our image. So you can see we're already getting somewhere. Let's change these headings, get rid of these icons and put the proper icons inside there. So we need to do a little bit of tweaking here to get this where we want it to be. So if we come in, for example, to our featured element, select it from our list, change this over to vertical. You can see that now pops the icon above. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select our heading, which again is all using the same class. We're going to get rid of this custom tag. Going to change this HTML. We'll set this to be H3. Clear any typography styles. Change the sizing on this. Go to typography. We'll set these to be, let's try large. That looks pretty good. Change what's in there and do exactly the same then for the second one. Now, first of all, we want to change these icons because they look terrible. So we want to find something different. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over into one of my favorite libraries, which is called Phosphor. We'll explore those icons and we're going to go and grab a couple of icons from here. So we'll search for what we want. This compass tool is one of the ones. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to choose to download the SVG raw. And let's simply replace these icons. So let's grab the first icon, select its class, come into content. Let's delete this from here. We're going to change this over to an SVG. We'll select our file, click open and add that in and click insert. That's going to come in absolutely massive. So now let's just set that to the size that we want. And if you want to change the color, you can change that from here as well. Same thing again. Now for the second icon, let's do exactly the same there. Select its class, change this over to our custom icon. And set the color. Let's hit save on there and let's have a quick look. So this is where we are. You can see we're already starting to make progress. We've got our images in place. We've got our text all being styled. We've replaced the icons. We're starting to get more of a unique look and feel based upon what we have inside Relume. So by using a combination of the techniques that I've covered in this video, from creating your images to setting up sections and building them yourself, or using a wireframe or a combination of both of those, you can very quickly start to prototype and build out fully featured websites like you can see on screen right now, with minimal effort, without taking huge amounts of time. And if you want to hand this off to a client so they can get a real feel and interact with how the design looks, this is a really quick way of doing it. And ultimately, you can easily change the content inside here for the real world end results. And I think you'd end up with a pretty nice looking website that a lot of clients will be absolutely happy with. Could you do more? Absolutely. But this is a great starting point to speed up your whole process. And if you want something for your portfolio, if you're new and you're starting out and you need some example websites to get over the styles and the kinds of things that you can do, this again is a great way of doing it. But as always, I do welcome your feedback. What do you think of this video? Would you use the topics and things that I've covered? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, all applicable links are in that description. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.